I tell people all the time that if they're not ready, don't do it. But if you are ready, do it, because it's going to be the best experience of your life. Welcome to the perfect society where Democrats and Republicans both get their way, and so does everybody else. Please visit www.everybodyshappy.com. I'm Curt Derby. And thank you for joining us. We are having one of our In the Shadows episodes today where we talk about topics that aren't widely covered in the old media and sometimes not even in the new media. I have with me Jared and Ashley Floyd. Welcome to the episode.
Hey, happy to be here.
Good to have you. So our episode today is called The Joy of Parenting. And first impression might be, well, duh, everybody knows about parenting. But duh, I'm not sure they really do, because certainly not talked about a lot in the new media, or the old media, and even in the new, because we hear a lot about, we all want to be independent, and sometimes kids are a hassle. But I'm here to tell you from personal experience that kids are awesome.
Agreed.
I have one child. I have a 16-year-old son. Jared and Ashley, how many kids do you have?
We have 8 kids.
They have 8 children.
Yeah.
They're married and no blended children, so they are all 8 kids belong biologically to you.
And one at a time. No twins.
Okay. Oh, okay.
No triplets, no quintuplets or whatever. This one at a time.
Now, are you thinking of having more, or are you done?
I'm not thinking of having more.
We feel complete. So
Okay.
I think we're at the stage where we're just going to start, instead of bringing them in, kicking them out. So,
Well, that's my next question is, what are their ages, if you can remember them all?
Our oldest is 17. He's almost 18 come March. So we are counting down. And then our youngest is 4.
they're about 2 years apart on average, if you take an average.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That makes it a little easier on birthdays.
Yep.
Okay, so tell me how much you love being parents.
I love it. It definitely is hard, but there's enough good to wait out. So that overall, it definitely brings joy to my life. I love it.
It's funny because when you introduced the topic, joy in parenting, I thought that's kind of an oxymoron or a parrot, because I don't know that I always look at it as a joy, but there's definitely really rewarding moments amongst all the mundane kind of everyday part of parenting. But it's probably the one thing in my life that I'm most proud of, is like being a dad and husband and having kids that I love and that they love me.
Well, and admittedly, I'm sure I have a different perspective. I've got one.
Yeah.
So all my love and focus and attention goes to him, and you have 8.
Yeah.
And you're married, and I'm single. So I've got a lot of brain space for my my one little guy who's not so little anymore.
When we tell people that we have 8 kids, after the shock and awe effect, people, I don't know why, but I always tell people that having the 3rd kid is a big jump, because then you're outnumbered. You're no longer have an equal ratio. And then the other one is when you have the 6th kid. Most vehicles nowadays sit like 7 people, and so it pushes into a whole new world of transportation if you want to all go in one vehicle. So
what vehicle do you have then for all of our audience that have 8 or more kids?
we have a Ford Transit.
Okay.
It seats 12. So
Okay.
enough to bring a couple of friends with.
That's pretty much a school bus.
Yeah. I don't have to have a CDL to drive it, so that's good.
I'm with you. And Jared, I love what you said. I forgot exactly how you phrased it, but it's the I don't know, you said the best thing or the most
Proud.
thing I'm probably most proud
the thing you're most proud of.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I had a great marriage for 8 years, and I've had great girlfriends. I've got friends. I've had personal successes, business successes. But my son, probably all those things combined, still don't match up to how I feel about him. It is a special kind of love and
Yeah.
bond that you have.
Definitely.
It is.
Did you guys want kids before you got married? Like, did you talk about it? And
Oh, yes.
okay, you both wanted them. Obviously,
did.
well, obviously you had to
Yeah.
want them a little bit.
Like,
Kind of a quick, funny story. Before we were married and before we were even engaged, some of the lunchroom bro talk was one of my friends had a book. It was like 300 questions to ask before you get married. And it went into things like asking about intimacy and all these things that at the time to me, I was like, I would never ask that,
Yeah.
but one of, it's like, well, how many kids do you want to have? And Ashley comes from a big family. Is it, I guess, 10 technically?
yeah, 8 living, 10 kids total.
Yeah. And then I came from a family, there's 4 siblings, but we're all spread out pretty far. So we basically grew up independent, more like a single child almost. I mean, we still had a family, but my older brother's 2.5 years older, and then my next is like 5 and 7 years younger. So anyways, when we were dating and when we started to get closer, I think we bridged that question and we kind of settled on 6. So
Oh, wow.
we're
so you decided
overachievers.
the number before you got married.
We kind of like, oh, 6 sounds good. And I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to it.
It
We
was
just,
less than what I grew up with.
And
'cause
more
it
than what
felt
I
like
had,
a lot
maybe?
when I grew up. Yeah. And then one more.
yeah.
Cool.
So
More.
So when did you decide on 7 and 8? Was it after 6? Like you did the 6 and then you're like, oh, geez, this isn't quite enough.
yeah, I mean, it starts to get into kind of, I think each couple or that decides to have kids, it's kind of hopefully it's a joint decision. And for us, we kind of described it as like, we always felt like we were missing someone.
Oh.
And so when we got up to that number, I think I was kind of done. But then we just felt like there was more kids that we wanted to have. And that's where I was saying earlier, we feel complete. Like for whatever reason, that feeling's kind of gone. So I don't know if we're maxed out or what, but it's just, we don't have that same feeling anymore. Like we feel like all of ours are here now, if you will. So
Sure. And Ashley, you feel the same?
Yeah, I definitely like even. And
Even numbers?
But I felt really bad. Our number 6 was a boy after 3 girls in a row. So his older brothers were both 8 years older than him. And so I was like, he needs a little brother.
Is 7 or 8 a brother?
And then 7 was a girl.
Oh.
I was like, no.
but we did
I mean, I love her to pieces.
slipped in
but
another
yeah.
boy there at the end. Number 8 is a boy.
If 8 was a girl, it would have been fine. And I just would have felt bad for number 6 boy. I was like,
So what's the
oh, well.
breakdown then, boys and girls?
4 and 4.
Oh, it is 4 and 4. Okay,
Yeah.
Starts
great.
2 boys, then 3 girls in a row, and then boy, girl, boy.
Wow. Okay.
I liked it being clustered, and I was hoping we could end clustered, but it's okay.
Gotcha.
Number
Okay.
6 and number 8 are boys, and they actually, even though there's like 4 years in between them, they get along great.
Yeah,
So.
we do.
Well, I know, I think I can relate to what you're saying. You feel complete.
Yeah.
My ex and I, actually, let me back up. Before we got married, my ex and I, we did talk about it. And we talked about a lot of the other things too, right? And that's a good idea for
Yeah.
people getting married.
Maybe another topic.
Right. Yeah, that could be a whole nother episode. I'll have you back. But neither one of us wanted kids. And we grew up in different families than you guys. Not big, mostly divorced. My brother tortured me to death growing up. He was older and bigger and more aggressive. And we got along. I mean, it was kind of a schizophrenic relationship. Sometimes we were best pals. Other times he'd wanted to kill me.
Okay.
So I don't know if any of that had anything to do with it, or if who knows. But anyway, when my ex and I started talking about getting married, we talked about kids, and neither one of us wanted them. And she kind of had the same type of background, family life and all. Plus, we grew up in Ohio, and now that I live in Utah, there is a vast difference between how kids act in Ohio and how kids act here. Now, I've been out of Ohio for I've been out of there for almost 20 years. So maybe it's different.
Right.
But they are bratty. They are loud. They're obnoxious. They don't listen to their parents. Their parents couldn't care less.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So again, that's the environment we grew up in.
Yeah.
And when she and I moved to Utah in 2005, we see kids in the stores and they're behaved. And they get along with their parents, and their parents treat them with respect. And I'm like, whoa, like that was a culture shock.
Yeah.
Anyway, but before we got married, we both agreed that even though we didn't want kids, if one of the other of us did want them, the other would acquiesce.
Oh.
And she's the one who brought it up. It was on my birthday. We were out to dinner.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Oh, it was fantastic. And she said, I'm kind of thinking I'd like to have a child. And I'm like, done. Let's do it. And 3 months later, she was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can speak into the culture difference. So I grew up in Mississippi, lived in Georgia for a short stint, Argentina for a couple of years. And then when I came back to the States, I was in Idaho. That's where we met at school. And then we moved to Utah for a short while. We were here I guess it'd be 16 years ago while I was doing a master's degree. And then we moved to Arizona and then back to Idaho. And so we've kind of stayed out west ever since. But when we lived in Phoenix, there was definitely a different culture. It was like a dog-eat-dog world. And it was not where we lived in central Phoenix anyways, it was it just wasn't as family friendly. And Ashley used to get looked at weird and stuff all the time in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Because you're like, why do you have so many kids? That was kind of the mentality of what's wrong with you for having all these kids and how dare you bring them into the store, while you're grocery shopping. But very different. I mean, Utah, Idaho, and we lived in Boise and we live in Harriman here, but it's been, there's definitely a different culture. And so I do think that can vary wherever you're at, and the mentality towards it. So
yeah, and influence whether or not you think there's a joy in parenting.
Yes.
yeah,
Because when my ex and I came, we're of course married at the time, but when we came over here, we talked about it. We're like, oh my gosh, kids aren't terrible.
Yeah,
they might be fun. And I think that sowed the seeds right away. And then a couple of years later is when she asked me.
To sympathize a little bit with the other side, if we will, I do feel like I have way less patience with other people's kids than I have with my own, right? I can watch my kids all day, but if I have to watch someone else's kid after an hour and a half, it's time for them to go.
I'm with you.
So it does. It totally, for those people thinking about kids and they're like, no, I do hate kids or whatever. It's different when it's your own kid. Cause like you said earlier, there's a bond, there's a connection. And so anyways, I think
that's true. And you've got their lifetime full of your influence on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're babysitting somebody, you kind of see things differently. They don't know what to expect from you. They don't know what the rules are, the discipline and all that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier to parent your kids than other people's kids.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a question for you. Should everybody have kids?
That is a great question. I think it depends a lot on their upbringing, their current state, and their well-being, their mindset, for sure. Because then that would influence how they care for and how they treat, and then the ultimate results of their adult child now that's off into the world on their own, beginning with themselves. How are you mentally, emotionally? So, yeah.
Yeah, for me personally, because I have so much joy, that's a great term for it. It makes me almost feel sad to say you shouldn't have kids, because I feel like there is such a return on that investment, if you will, that it's hard to think that someone couldn't benefit from it. But I know that, people that have way different life circumstances, than I do, it may not be the right thing for them to have a kid because they're not really equipped to parent a kid. And so, getting to the topic of parenting, I do think there's a real responsibility there of, it's not just, I don't know, there was some show this is totally random off topic, right? But he's had thousands of kids or something through sperm bank donations or things. It's not about just populating the world with your seed. It's about creating a family unit that you can raise a generation in to be kind of better, if you will. So I think there's a responsibility there that some people wouldn't be ready for whatever reason, and depending on where they're at. But if I had my way and I was backed into a corner, I'd be like, yes, everyone should have a kid.
Well, I'm on the same lines. I think, we know how much fun it is, and all other parents do too. And if you've never been a parent, you don't know it yet until you get there. But if you would have told me 20 years ago you should have a kid, I'd be like, yeah, get out of my face. you don't know me. But yeah, because I didn't know the joy of parenting. But yeah, absolutely, I would. And in your mind if you're ready or not. And if people think they're not ready, they should absolutely not have kids. And if they are intimate, use the birth control or do the things you need to do to
definitely
avoid getting pregnant. And because it's that would be tough, I think, to get pregnant when you're not ready.
Yeah.
And especially if you're single. And I think it'd be harder on me if she and I were single when we started, like if we were just boyfriend, girlfriend, and then she got pregnant. I don't know. I think there is something about marriage that helps that along. It makes you more serious about your kids and about each other. That you've publicly stated this bond, that,
unified,
these promises. That
we did. We were engaged. We got married, and then we had kids. So we did go in that order. So I can't speak to going out of that order, but I would think that having that commitment of marriage would help bring a little bit of kind of certainty into the relationship and a little bit more security, at least for being able to have a kid too, you know what I mean? Versus like if you're together and you're really together, but you're still not, if you're still figuring it out, then I think that would create, maybe a difficult dynamic, or might become a hurdle in a relationship. Because then it's like, well, and then it becomes whose kid is, anyways. So.
Well, and you've introduced this new human being into your life.
Yeah.
And you're not even sure if the two of you are even square.
Right.
Yeah.
And now you got this other, that would really make it hard.
Yeah.
For sure. But I agree with you. I would say that I believe that every adult person can benefit from kids, and it's mind-blowing just how close you feel with them.
Yeah.
But for those who aren't ready, don't do it, especially newlyweds, because I think newlyweds need some time to be newlyweds, and then maybe eventually they want a new challenge or a new experience, and that's definitely a new experience. So you brought up investment, which made me think about money.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta ask, with 10 of you, how do you manage?
I don't know. I don't know that. That's a great question. I was so naive, and we're on the, I think there's a lot of influences that kind of prepare you for when you're going to have a kid, right? Like I was probably 19 when I just had the thought, like, I'm ready for my own family. Okay. So that might be an odd thought for a 19-year-old nowadays, and maybe it's not. But coming from stable families, both of us, we did start right away, and that was one of the choices or things we talked about, is that we wanted to have kids right away. And so, anyways, what were we saying?
Money.
Oh, money, yeah. So
I like that answer. I like that answer though. And,
yeah.
And for people who have grown up wanting kids and wanting to get married, keep going with that, because again, this is in the shadows.
Yeah.
This media doesn't celebrate that. Like, be who you are. If you've had these dreams of a beautiful wedding, and if you've had these dreams of, wanting kids right away, foster that, and the society kind of pounces on people for that. And like, oh, you need to be an individual. You need to stand on your own. Well, I need to do what I want to do. Anyway.
Yeah.
So the money.
Yeah. So
Jared did enter into parenthood thinking kids were more expensive than what I thought
too.
Children were.
Yes,
I did too.
Probably because I had siblings and my mother nursed too. And so at the beginning, you didn't have to pay anything for their food. Just feed the mother.
And that's what I was going to say, is like, I was like sitting down with the budget, like, okay, this baby's coming. Like, how much more do we need to plant? Like, I was doing these things, and the baby came, and it's nursing, and that was it. I was like, oh, well.
Diapers were the biggest expense.
Yeah. And
Did you get disposable, or did you use the cloth?
At the beginning, we
Safety
tried
pin.
cloth because we were poor college students trying to save money.
And we got so lucky that the apartment we rented came with a washer and dryer.
Oh,
And so we ran that thing to the ground, I think. But the washer and dryer, that is, with our non-disposable diapers. But yeah.
When we switched apartments, we all shared washer and dryers with all the other tenants. And so then we did switch to disposable. I was like, I don't think people would appreciate me doing extra washing.
That's right. I forgot about that. So I think, honestly, it's one of the, I don't know how you, some people, I don't know what I want to say with this other than just that, like, I don't think you ever regret having any of your kids. You know what I mean? Like, so it's one of those things where, like, what's the saying? Necessity is the mother of creativity, right? Like, having a kid increases this, it puts pressure on your shoulders, but it also creates that urgency to do something, you know, like to provide. And so I've always felt like it was kind of a good burden, if you will, that was a motivating factor for me. And so I started a business like right when we were having a kid, like to try and, you know, bring in the income and stuff like that. And I don't really know how much they cost. It was one of those things, it's like, but you wouldn't do anything else. You know, I mean, you just have to kind of do it. I will say that I grew up playing a ton of sports. Like, I did everything under the sun, and I was fairly good at it. And I got a lot of my, like, self-confidence and recognition from excelling in that area. And I look at the cost of some of these, like, sports today, and we can't, like, I can't pay. I mean, we were going to do gymnastics for my daughter, and it was going to be something like $400 or $600 a month. And I was like, well,
because she did so good, she was going to progress on to the
and
competitive side of it.
so being in a large family, we have to make trade-offs
They take turns.
for what we can do. And so we've had to, where I feel like where I'd like to have given that to each of my kids, kind of that opportunity, they kind of just have to take turns, if you will. And so, but I think being in a large family too, there's a loving network that's built in, right? Like if you don't need, at least from our experience, like going to middle school or high school or things like that, they're not necessarily seeking the same level of social interaction for peer recognition and stuff that maybe a single kid would, because they're looking for friends. You know, not that they don't like you as a dad, you know, that your son doesn't like you, but they have that, like, all the time, and it's kind of chaotic a lot too. But
that's nice.
but
Well, I mean, it's nice they have each other.
yeah,
Not
they
that
have
it's
each
chaotic
other.
sometimes.
They have each other, and so what they've lost, I guess, in my mind, in terms of like sports or that, has kind of been made up for in other ways in their development that I didn't have, you know. And I think that's like emotional intelligence and learning to associate with people at all different ages and different interests and stuff. They're kind of forced into that environment in a large family, at least, that they're still getting those benefits that I would have gotten through a different outlet. You know what I mean? Because I didn't grow up in a big family. So
Yeah.
I will say, though, I think the first gender makes it, like, is as expensive as I feel like our kids will be, because we just saved the clothes from each gender and then just passed it down.
The
So all of our
hand-me-downs.
kids have hand-me-downs.
Sure.
Except for shoes. Shoes get run through really fast. But yeah, so if you have just a boy and a girl, that'll be the same cost as it was for us for, like, our first 4 children, because we just passed those clothes down. Right. I mean, price-wise, for clothing at least.
Sure.
I will say that our food budget has arrived at what seems like an astronomical number from when I remember our food budget as a couple at one point was like $120 a month, which was still really low. But that's like, I mean, we go out as a family, and it's, you know, that's like an afternoon outing with a family of 10. I mean, if we go to a fast food place or something, I'm dropping at least $50. And so you just kind of get used to it, though. You just kind of roll with it. But I was going somewhere with that thought, but we were talking about money,
Hand-me-downs.
hand-me-downs.
Food?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Money
our
involved.
food budget is. Are we at 2,000 now?
Yeah.
Our food budget is 2,000
A month?
a month. Yeah,
Well, it's been
For
bad
our
the last
kids.
3 years.
Yeah.
yeah.
So let's hope that things turn around there and,
Yeah.
it gets more affordable.
And
Definitely.
so, and that's for a family of 10. So I mean, it would obviously vary depending on how many kids you have, but yeah. So I guess they're expensive, but way worth it.
Well,
I
and
guess.
and I think you said that you kind of don't notice it. Like I don't either.
don't.
When we started with our son, I don't think we were really pinching pennies or counting pennies. We're just
Yeah.
like, this is what he needs, so we're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And you kind of don't miss it, I mean, because you do spend money on stuff that you're not really keeping track of anyway, stuff that's not essential. So when you start spending it on somebody important, it's like, well, I've always had the money. I just spent it in other ways.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the first gender of each. Did you find, and this is my belief, only having one. My ex and I talked about having 3 or 4. That was our magic
Okay.
number. But we got to 1 and then the divorce got one. But I always felt like the first one's got to be the hardest because it's brand new. You're nervous about everything. They're coughing a little bit and it's like, oh my gosh, are they,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, was the second one a lot easier than the first because you've kind of gone through the process already and you know what to do and you know what to expect? And
I feel like yes, but I guess each personality plays into it. And so then each child has its own challenges and differences that I didn't experience with the first child. Like our first 2 are polar opposites. The first one was always go, go, go and talk to everyone and into everything. And the second son was content to just sit in the stroller and watch the kids play at the park. I was like, don't you want to go play? And he would prefer to sit and just watch for a little bit, get a feel for the situation, and then he would probably join in and just go and stand by his brother while his brother played or interacted. But I mean, they're a complete difference
that's really
when it
interesting.
comes to discipline and parenting.
It is fascinating that, I mean, how different they come, if you will. I mean, we're the same, like we mentioned, they're all our kids, but each one has their own personality and has from day one.
And that's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
'Cause
Another topic.
Well, we can touch it on a little bit because I'm going to bring it up.
Okay.
But I'm a I got a degree in psychology. So there's that whole debate of nature versus nurture. And I think the psychology, or at least when I went to college, the kind of consensus in the psych world was that it's a mixture of both, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting because the nurture is exactly the same parents, the same families, the same house, the same place where you live.
Mm-hmm.
The genetics are the same, so nature's the same, right? So you got genetically, they're not exactly the same because everybody's
Yeah.
unique.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how like my brother and I, like we're pretty different. We
Yeah.
got some similarities, but we had the same parents, we had the same house. Why do you think that is?
My brother and I are also very different, and I'm pretty different from my other sisters too. So, I don't know. I mean, our belief is that we existed before we came to Earth, and so part of it comes from that ideology or theology, I guess. I don't know what the right term there would be, of that we've existed for a long time, not just the start of, conception or whatever. So I think if you kind of have that belief or mentality, then it becomes easy to say, well, you've developed different gifts and talents and all those kinds of things before you ever even came here. That you come
personality,
somewhat
at least.
hardwired,
Yeah,
towards certain things. So, and in terms of nurture or nature, it is interesting. I would say something I wasn't aware of because I didn't have a big family, but I mean, nowadays, I guess 4 kids is a big family, but where you come in the lineup of kids, talking about parenting, and that's definitely one of the challenges. Like, because as you mentioned, the first kid comes, you're kind of all hands on deck and trying to mitigate any thing, and then by the time you get to the end, you're like, where's our kid? Like, I don't know, he's somewhere. I'm sure he's fine. I mean, like, there's definitely a shift or a maturation, but then also you know, first kid versus middle kid versus the baby, we try and like parent so that some of those stereotypes associated with middle kid syndrome or the baby, we're not, you know, we're trying to fight against those outcomes, you know, like the middle kids get lost and forgotten about, you know, and then the baby gets spoiled is the idea. And then the oldest one gets too much responsibility, and parentification, I think, is the term where you put too much on the older one. And so we've tried to avoid some of the things that could occur from being in at least a big family. But I've strayed a little bit. You were talking about nurture and nature and why we think they're different. Do you have any other thoughts?
I was going to say, they definitely, I feel like they come the way they are. And then we do influence, and they do grow and become more as they live and experience life. But the first, it was like a party in my room, in my belly. Like, he would go crazy, and you could see like his fist and his heel. And then the second one, I had to go in for extra appointments, for extra tests. They're called stress tests, to make sure that the baby is still alive and that it wasn't a stillbirth because of how still he was. So even in the womb, my oldest was still hyper and everywhere, and my second was still chill in the womb. So I think their personalities at least kind of come hardwired. And then, yeah, I've picked up traits that Jared does because we've just spent so much time together that now it's kind of part of who I am too, bits and pieces. So we do change and we do grow. But yeah, I think a big part of who we are
is predetermined
from the beginning.
Well, and genetically, like my dad's personality, I see a lot in maybe my like second son. And so our ancestry, or is that the right term for it,
Heritage.
I guess? Our heritage, you know, like those genes are also, you know, we carry down too, right? And so I look at you know, her side of the family, my side of the family, and I can see similarities between this daughter and Ashley's mom, or this daughter and Ashley's dad. And so it just, one of those things that I do think it's not just our personalities, but we're carrying, like, however that works, you know, DNA or whatever.
Behavior or looks.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a child may look like somebody's grandmother, just
Great uncle.
spitting image at the same age.
Yeah.
You know, when the grandmother was 5 years old and you compare pictures, it's like they're almost
Yeah.
identical.
Yeah.
But I have a similar spiritual belief. I don't think that we are human beings that have spiritual experiences. I think we are spirits having a human experience.
Yeah.
I agree.
Where that comes and goes, it's anybody's guess. But okay, so some harder questions here. Can you think of a time when there was a crisis or a tragedy in one of your kids' lives, and you just kept a cool head about it and you helped them through it?
I have a thought.
Okay, we'll go with yours then.
When my kids see this take, they will be very frustrated with me that I shared which kid it was.
Well,
but
maybe just
anyways,
don't put a name to it.
yeah, I'll just say one of my kids. For whatever reason, it just seemed like their proclivity towards anger, or like, I don't know, violence almost, was control. And so we had I don't know, we had an instance once where I was like, this is getting out of hand, where one of them kind of pulled the knife on another one. And
was it really a knife, or was it a fork or something?
I thought it was. I mean, that's how it was told to
Sorry,
me.
we're both circling.
This idea, I mean, it's not like, you know, like to their throat, like, don't move or else, you know, but it was like that moment of they're at each other's throats, no pun intended, with, you know, like with whatever it was. And it was like, you know, I was like, whoa, that's not okay. You know, like to me, that was like, that reached like a crisis level a little bit, because, you know.
So how'd you handle it?
Well, so this is not something that happened over like instant, but as you have kids and you're parenting, you really have to learn you need to learn how they think, because each one is different.
And what they value.
So for this particular, you know, understanding why is really important for this kid. Like, it can't just be because dad said so or mom said so, whatever it is. It's like, if I take the time to explain why, then that goes a long way. But even beyond that, one of the epiphanies that came to me as a parent, those brief moments of whatever, was helping this individual see the consequences that their decisions were having. And so this thought came one day to just kind of put my hand like this. I was like, so-and-so, like, this is you. And your choice is going to decide if my hand goes up or if my hand goes down. And to make it go up, what do you think that would be? Or I just told that person at the time, it's like, well, to make it go up, then you need to do this. And if you make this choice, it's going to go down. So happy, sad, whatever it is. And so I said, it's right here. You make the choice. And then they made the right choice, if you will. And then it kind of became this coded sign language between us that
doing this.
whenever that individual was faced with what would maybe be a difficult decision for them, I could just be like this. And then that metacognition, I guess, or bringing the thought process to the front and having a visual. What's amazing is every time, and I've started doing this with like all my kids since then almost, they always make it go up. And that surprises me because, human nature, at least for me in some part, is like, no, I want it to go down and I want it to hurt or whatever. And it's like, but they always choose that. And that's amazing to me. So I mean, there's the thing about parenting and why it maybe feels like, I don't know if oxymoron or paradox is the right word there, of joy and parenting, is it has taken me the depths that I never thought I would go. In terms of like you kind of have your working like thoughts of how things should go and how things should be. And then it takes you to this point like beyond that you didn't even know existed, but you're suddenly faced with having to solve. Like in this case, in my case with one of my kids pulling, a potential weapon on the other kid, whether it was a fork or a knife or whatever it was, stick. It's just like, I don't know how to deal with this, but suddenly I'm dealing with it. And so hopefully your lifetime has equipped you for those moments. But that was a great learning moment for me as a parent, and also for my kid, is responding in a way that met their needs, like the way they were seeing things, so that they could start to kind of come out of it on their own.
And I think it comes from control. Everyone has basic needs that they need to be met, love being one of them, and food and water, shelter. But one of them is control. No matter their age, every single person wants to feel in control of their life and their choices. And when they're being acted upon and they feel like they're losing that control, that's when they also lash out. And it puts your brain into fight, flight, freeze mode. Yeah. And so then you're actually not thinking clearly. So when you can help them feel like they're back in control, you have this choice or you have this choice, then they're like, oh, okay, I am still in control here. And sometimes, I mean, as parents, there are dangerous situations. We have to step in and say, okay, I'm going to make the choice now. But as often as possible is that we can give that control back to them, they do so much better. Their choices improve and they excel. And then their self-esteem definitely improves and rises too, because they feel they are in control.
And their ability to make a decision in the future.
Yes.
Based on whatever stress they're going through.
Yeah.
And I'm on board with you on all that stuff. I don't know that I've ever told my son, you need to do this, or you should think this way. I don't think I ever have, but I've done the consequences thing. Like,
Right.
If you yell at your friends, they may not want to hang out with you. Mm-hmm. And that's okay if you don't want them to hang out with you, but you seem to enjoy their company. So if you want to hang out with them, consider a lower voice or, being kinder or whatever. But I love parenting that way. And you're right. It's hard. I mean, because some of those things, they happen and you're in the moment and you're not
ready.
You're not sure how to deal with it. And I'm kind of a planner in some ways. With my kid, I always have been. Like I always try to think of scenarios before they happen.
Yeah.
And how I would react to them. Because I forget exactly how you phrased it, Jared, but you said, when you're in those moments and you have to rise to the occasion, you have to make make a decision. One of the joys of parenting is they make you a better person. This is kind of going off our topic of the tragedy, but I wanted to point this out is because you're on stage with a bright spotlight on you. If you're a loving parent. Now, if you just don't really care about your kids, then, you keep on being the way you were before they were born.
Yeah.
But I know for me, I always thought I was a pretty good guy and, mostly moral and ethical. But when you got a little 2-year-old or 3-year-old or 10-year-old staring at you, you better be on your best behavior because they're modeling your behavior, especially same-sex parents.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he's made me a better person just because I have to really be on my best behavior in front of him. And then, if I'm on the phone with a buddy of mine, I can kind of lay off that a little bit. But my son's he's old enough now that I really don't feel like I need to parent him. I put in a lot of the work when he was little and he's turned out just beyond what I ever could have hoped for.
Oh, good.
But
awesome.
You do. You're kind of like, it makes you think to yourself before you behave in front of them or before you tell them a certain thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I better make sure, I set the right example.
I'm not a child development specialist by any stretch of the imagination, but I do believe that the younger years are really,
Most impressionable.
the most impressionable, the most formative in terms of their development. And you alluded to at least where I'm going with it, acting calmly in the situation. I kind of learned later how much overreacting, how much of a negative impact that can have on the development of a kid. For example, a kid spills the milk, and if I lash out in anger or heavy frustration or give a really heavy consequence, I'm kind of instilling in that kid a fear of making any mistakes. I'm kind of, in essence, as the parent, killing their opportunity to have a growth mindset moving forward because I've fixed them into an expectation that just doesn't go with like a growth mindset, right? Like mistakes are part of life and it's okay and failure is good and, to grow and those kinds of things. And so that's something I kind of learned a little bit later. And I definitely grew up with mistakes are not acceptable. Like you don't want to make mistakes. If you make mistakes, and then it's like the end of the world, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think that was our generation.
And that came back, to bite me hard in my professional career. Like if I made a mistake, that ruined my week, kind of a thing at work or whatever it was. And so it took me a while to kind of to come out of that. And so same thing in our parenting, like overreacting. That's on one of my list of don'ts. Like you need to react. Like reacting is normal, human, whatever. But overreacting can have a negative effect on their emotional, psychological. There's about like a whole slew of different things. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah. And
definitely having, like you said, having some line, a phrase in mind that you can use in those moments where everything's all of a sudden elevated and your emotions too are elevated. Having that line already in place, you're like, oh, well, you can put your shoes on now or you can get in the car without your shoes, but we're leaving in 5 minutes. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It just helps everything stay in perspective. Everyone else's minds and brains are they can still think clearly.
And you said something, and it made me think of this because I know that some parents, they see themselves as like that works for your kids, but that would never work for my kid. And that may be true. But I would say there seems to be a direct correlation between good parenting and effort in my mind. Because like being a good parent, like we said, like it takes effort, like it takes thought. It's easy to not ask guiding questions to your kids. It's easier to just tell your kid how to think or what to do. You know what I mean? Like, that's easy. But it takes a little bit more effort to say, well, how do you think your friends, feel about that? And to your example, like, I think good parenting and effort kind of go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. I feel like, and they do change as they get older, right? Like, I think in their early years you might be way more involved, but then as they get older, it goes, just like I did vocal performance for my bachelor's, and similarly, like you maybe start taking lessons and they're telling you how to hold your head and not put your chin up so it cuts off now they're just kind of a vocal coach, right? They're just listening to you and giving hints of things you can do to improve because you already know how to go. And so I think there is a transition that happens and should happen with parenting in terms of which age you're with. But anyway, so.
Yeah, that's right. And I've experienced that too. In fact, one of the misconceptions I had before having kids, when I didn't want those horrible little creatures, those monsters, is I just, and you hear it all the time. Oh, well, you're always a parent. You're always parenting. You're always this. And it's, well, obviously you're always a parent, and you all hopefully obviously always love them and have a bond. But I don't parent him anymore that much. I mean, I keep an eye on him, and he'll come to me every once in a while, but he's so well-adjusted, and he has been really for about a year or two. And I kind of look at our relationship almost quarterly. So from birth to 4 years, it was a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of work because you want to be attentive, or I did. There's the philosophy of when a baby's crying, just let them cry it out. I don't think so. Mm-hmm. I think that they're calling you. They need you, right? They're either hungry, they're sleepy, or they're uncomfortable. That's why they cry. Yeah. They're not crying to annoy you. So when my son would cry, boom, and we had baby monitors all throughout the house. So as soon as he would cry, boom, one of us was right there for him. And I think leaves them with a good impression.
A sense of trust.
Yes, they develop that way early, even though they're not aware of it because they're babies. Right. But I think we're wired for that. And when they know what to expect and they know their parents are going to be right there for them, I think it's great for them, and it's great for you because, parenting's not all about the kids. Parenting's about the parents. So the more at peace you are and the easier it is to parent. So anyway, birth to 4, tons of work. Mm-hmm. When he was about 4, that's when he got his personality. And that's when he was funny. He was outgoing. He was, independent and just fun to be around, like fun to hang out with. And then probably around age 12, that's when I could feel him kind of moving away, which was wild because we are tight. And we are today, super tight. Yeah. But growing up, I mean, we were just always right there. And then right around age 12, 13, I could feel him kind of moving away.
Yeah,
and
it's like natural.
Well, you're right. And yeah, it's a cycle of life.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, like the hardest part of parenting was 4 years. The fun part was 4 to 12. And I feel like I'm done. Kind of.
Yeah.
And you're right, everybody's different. And every kid is different. And some kids need more attention.
Some are very independent.
Well, but I did put in the work, and my ex does. She put in the work when he was little. And I think it really paid off. And they say, you were talking about the early years and, the almighty they, that the first 5 years is the most important. And in my case, I think that was true. Yeah. Or at least I'm seeing the results of it that way.
Yeah. Right. I mean, in our case, we've probably, we ended their life of crime in that period of time. I mean, we had one kid, anything that this kid saw, if it would end up in their pocket, and they cried in front of so many different store owners when we had them take it back, but you know what I mean? Like there, a lot of societal issues probably stem from not having good parenting.
Absolutely.
I mean, I feel pretty safe in saying that because
I think that's a fact.
I mean, we just talked about how much of an impact parenting can have on an individual. You start to quickly see why people could behave the way that they do, and so I'm not giving excuses for criminal behavior or bad behavior, but point being, I think we've curbed a lot of issues in those early years where if it had just been neglectful parenting or not really, which is kind of not parenting at all, then who knows where that would have gone to, kind of a thing.
I've heard between the ages of 1 and 6 or 1 and 8, somewhere in there, by 6 or 8, they've already developed their view of the world, how they're going to perceive the world and how they're going to react to other people by the age of 6 or 8. I was like, oh my goodness.
And when you're not a parent and you hear that, you can't believe it. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's like, how in the world? But now that I'm a parent, and again, we did the hard stuff in the beginning, totally makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. For those that might feel, because we all make mistakes in our parenting, I think at some point. But someone said once that like this was epiphany for me. Like relationships aren't like projects, right? Like I'm a very results oriented kind of guy, but when it comes to relationships or people, you can't control that, like, because you have your own agency and your own choices. So the only thing you can control in a relationship is time and effort. And I really liked that because I was like, oh, that's a great point, So, and the thing about parenting is you're a parent until the day you die, right? Like my dad, I call my dad like every other day, and we have conversations about things, and I love that. And so, and the more time and effort we put into a relationship, then we'll start to see, return. So if you feel like you've messed up with your kid and you miss those most formative years, it's not like the end, like there's no chance for you ever. I think
It's never too late to mend a relationship.
Yeah, I think you invest the time and you spend a little effort, conscientious effort, and you can change relationships, I think.
Yeah, well, and you see it all the time. If
Yeah.
kids who have been abused, or the father had left the home and kid hasn't seen the father in 20 years, and then they reunite, and
Yeah.
they want to mend it. They want to fix it. Because again, it kind of goes back to the beginning, the bond that you have with your child. Like there's nothing else like it.
Right.
And for the parents and the children that care. Now, if one or the other doesn't really care about the other, then
Yeah.
it is probably done, the relationship.
Yeah.
But, if they both
there's-
care and if they both want what's best for each other, then
Right. Going
it's
back
going to
to-
happen. It's,
Yeah. The trust cycle with infants. Yeah. I cry because I have a need that needs to be met. The parent's there, the need's met. And that creates this cycle. Oh, I can trust you. You care for me. I care for you. That love. Yeah. And then it grows on even in the toddler years. If mom says to do this, but then mom doesn't follow through, and that consequence that she said wasn't delivered, that trust is almost slightly broken too. Mom's not going to follow through. So yeah, keeping that trust going in that cycle.
And that goes back to what we were talking about, that you're really on your toes. I mean, you're really got to be a better version of yourself to make sure that in every situation they can feel that trust.
Yeah.
And as far as making mistakes and not being perfect,
Yeah.
I've apologized to my son for stupid stuff I've said or done, or mistakes I've made.
Yeah.
Even when he was 4 or 5, I'd say, I kind of yelled at you because I was frustrated and that wasn't nice. And I'm really sorry. And he's reciprocated. Like he's one of the best apologizers I've ever met, because he's probably heard me do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Exactly. I
yeah.
think that's excellent.
But parenting is, you're not perfect, and you do the best you can all the time, but we're human. And sometimes, we say, well, go pick it up because I told you to, like you were saying, like you'd rather explain it to him and explain the consequences.
Yeah,
but sometimes we do. We're just like, just go do it because I told you to,
Yeah.
But then if every time I did that, I would always go back and say, I didn't handle that the right way. I'm sorry for that.
I think that's definitely great for kids to see early on.
Yeah,
That
I was
adults
just gonna
aren't
say.
perfect. Even adults make mistakes. I mean, and that plays into the growth mindset for this child too.
Right.
That going through my life, it's okay if I make mistakes, and it's a growing process.
And I think there's a balance there, right? Because, I think we've learned that it's good not to feign perfection. Mm-hmm. Like it's actually good for your kids to see your imperfections and then say, hey, I was in the wrong there and I apologize. Like that's good parenting.
Because it's
it
good
doesn't
for
have to be
relationships.
that I'm right, you're wrong, the Matilda line. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm smart, you're dumb, but Like but then there's going too far too, where you can kind of expose kids to too much life trauma, I guess, if you will, or things. So I think there's a balance between, showing imperfection, I guess, or not being perfect, if you will, for lack of a better term, and then opening them up too much to things that are maybe too much of an adult world for kids to see.
And not just perfection, but also not having to pressure yourself to be an encyclopedia for your child, because when they hit 2 and 3 and 4, they're asking questions about everything.
Yeah.
And it can be challenging to kind of,
Yeah.
but, and I, early on I was like, well, he needs an answer. I'd better give him an answer, but I don't know. I don't have an answer. So, and then you're working all this out in your mind but eventually I don't know became a lifesaver. It's like, he'd ask me something I didn't know. I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because, I don't want to appear imperfect in front of my kid. Like I should know, because I'm the role model here, but we don't know everything. So that was very liberating when I just started doing, I don't know. That's a good one.
Yeah. My son, he really liked when I would say, I don't know, let's find out. And so then he'd go to Google and he'd type it in, ask Google. Yeah.
It's really hard not saying the name of my kids, like, as we talk about this.
Yeah.
But we love our kids. They are fantastic. Each one is different. Some of them are hilarious. Others are, it's funny to kind of match up their personalities with future careers, because they're like, you are 100% a supportive person. Like they're motivated by being able to help or be supportive. And the other one, it's way into knowledge and knows a lot about a lot of different things.
Or managing and delegating to their
others managing and delegating. And so one of the things that we've tried to do as parents along the way is I kind of, this is bad on my part, like talk about mistakes as name calling. So I almost use name calling as a term of endearment sometimes, but I have to be careful as my kids see it, right? Like if I was saying, well, he's a Neanderthal, and I'm kind of partially joking and highlighting someone else's, way of thinking or whatever it is they're doing. And that started catching on, because you talked about your kids teach you and you need to be a good example. Well, they end up just reflecting you. And so you start to see in your own kids, you're like, well, they're doing that because they're reflecting what I've, shown them. They're a mirror of me. So it's like, okay, we got to change that. So we had this whole, at least episode where it was like, we're not going to do any more name calling. And if you name call, then you have to do a service for the other one and this, that, and the other. And
so have that a lot, serving each other.
Yeah, we do. And so I don't know where I was going with that other than just that.
We're just going everywhere. We're just going.
Well, just that being an example is, that is parenting. Because that's what they're going to that's what they're going to, see, and that's what they're going to start doing. Like, you're apologetic, your son's apologetic. Like, you're a name caller, your kids start to call everyone by names.
Yeah.
And so those are things that, but I have, going back to just, selfish or unselfish, I feel like parenting is a selfless thing. Like, if you're trying to do it good, I think it's not about you. It's about the needs of the other kids. Like, it's about your kids, like doing things that benefit them, that are blessing their lives. And I think that's one of those, that's one of the joys of parenting, is that you're becoming something more than you could have ever become in the absence of parenting.
Right. That's exactly right.
Because I couldn't recreate the experiences I've had as a parent, I don't think, in any other way other than being a parent. Mm-hmm. And those experiences have shaped and molded me into what I consider to be a more selfless person, a more empathetic person, a more mindful person, a more educated person, to know answers to things and different things. And so parenting is a journey that if you're willing to do, then it takes you, it's kind of, it's an irony, right? Like, you think,
You think you're developing them, but you're really developing yourself.
Yeah.
You're developing both.
Yeah. And in the effort of being a good parent, you become more selfless, but you actually get rewarded more from doing that. You know what I mean? You become a better you in the act of doing that. And so anyways, I do think that it's hard to describe or like put a pamphlet out there and say, hey, here's why you want to be a parent.
You just have to experience it.
But there's experiences there that definitely are unique to parenting.
Yeah. And on the face of it, it sounds like, man, that's a lot of work. Gosh, that's a lot of attention you got to pay to certain things.
Yeah.
And you got to watch what you say and you got to watch how you act.
Yeah.
But really, it's a good thing. Like after it's over, like while I'm doing it, sometimes it's a little stressful. Yeah. Like, oh man, again, being on stage with a bright spotlight, it's like, oh man, I better be good and do the right thing. But then afterward, I feel pretty good because I'm like, okay, I made the effort and I sent the right message that I wanted him to hear. So it is work, but it's work worth working on.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And real quick, this is an aside, but this might alleviate your mind a little bit, Jared, and Ashley, if you feel the same way. I do not do debates on any of my episodes, but I'm going to disagree with you slightly on the selflessness thing.
Oh, sure.
And here it is. And we don't have to, talk about it anymore. I've thought about this whole selfish idea, not just with parents and kids, but just in society, because you hear it all the time. Oh, well, this group of people is selfish and the rich people are selfish and the CEOs are selfish and the so-and-so and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
We are all selfish, every single one of us.
Yes.
And here's why. Because no matter what we say or no matter what we say, we do everything in our own best interests. That's selfish. Mm-hmm. You are selfish because you're doing everything that you think should be done. So, and I've thought about this with kids because I hear, not just you guys, but parents throughout history. Oh, I sacrificed this for my kids. I sacrificed that for my kids. No, you didn't. You chose your kids. Nobody can self-sacrifice. Other people can sacrifice you because they can force you to do certain things you don't want to do. But when you're getting up in the middle of the night because your kid is sick, you're not sacrificing anything. You're selfishly helping them because you love them and you want them to be safe and happy and all those things. So again, I'm not trying to mince words with you, but
no,
I'm trying to let you off the hook. Like you're not selfless.
Yeah.
You're selfish. You're selfish. Yes. I'm selfish. We're all selfish. Yeah. And it's like the whole drowning victim thing. Like, oh, that person was so selfless. They went out and saved that person and they died in the process. Well, while they were going out to save that drowning person, they were selfishly thinking, I want to save that person. So anyway, again, I'm not mincing words.
No, it just
but you hear this whole selfish thing all the time, and everybody's wrong.
It's true. It's kind of a trigger word to some extent, and I definitely was more superficial with the definition and not to that depth.
You didn't go crazy
just
on
in
it like I did.
I mean, my personal experience, like when I had people look at me like, no, why would you have a kid? Like that messes up my workout routine. That messes up my, like in that sense of like selfish or like selfishness, I guess. Again, we'll just move away from
No, that's fine. No, but I you guys are cool. You're selfish and everybody else is, no matter what they say. Right.
Yeah.
All right. So here's a question for either or both. What is the scariest moment you've had with one of your kids and what happened?
There was one day where I think Ashley started getting worried about it. Like, hey, where's so-and-so? And I'm like, I don't know. And then like, well, we can't find so-and-so. And then there's always that point where it's like, oh, and then they show up. Well, that never happened. It's like it's like, okay, now I'm starting to get a little worried, And so I remember getting on my bike and I had that thought of like, man. And I started riding around all the places that I knew they could have been. And the thought of like, man, if someone grabbed our kids, they're gone. You know what I mean? Like that fast, they could just be gone. Mm-hmm. And even though that didn't happen and we found our kids and I don't remember.
Well, in the meantime, it's scary.
In the meantime, there was that moment of like, man, there's nothing I could do because they would just be gone. Like, and that was a really scary feeling for that brief moment that we couldn't
Right.
Oh, I do have one. I just thought of one. Okay. One of our kids, I don't know why, but we talked about fight or flight. This kid's reaction is flight. Okay. And he took that very literally. And we were on a family vacation and we were going to go hike up a hill together. And unfortunately, this kid, there's a thing called endocapresis. It's when it happens with a lot of kids. We've learned, like, they go to the bathroom and they don't know they're going to the bathroom
Because they're so constipated.
yeah.
and
So
get a little
I think
farther.
that had just happened with this one, and so he was very self-conscious of the fact that had happened, and like, okay, well, here's your clean clothes and let's go and whatever it is, and too embarrassed to go out.
Because now he's in a new pair of pants, so everyone's going to know what happened.
Right.
That was his reasoning.
And so we're like, okay, so like, well, we're gonna walk up here, and then you join us when you're ready, kind of a thing. And we go, and he doesn't come. And then it's like, okay, well, who's gonna go back and get him? So one of us walks back, and then instead of coming, he just runs.
Bolts.
So he doesn't. He's so afraid of facing in his own mind these consequences of being
people's
embarrassed
opinions.
or other people, that he just runs. And then, like, it's like, okay, I'm not going to overreact. I'm not going to start running after him, and like grab him or whatever. So I just start walking, and he just keeps going further and further. And I can't remember, how old was he at this time? Like maybe 5 years old. To the point where he's now like a football field away, getting to a super busy
Street.
road. And so then I'm like, crap, what are we going to do? So I'm like hollering back, and we were with some friends of ours, and they had some kids too. And it's like, hey, we gotta go get our kid. And luckily, me saying like, hey, don't go into that street. He stopped and went down into a giant gully that's like 50 feet deep and was hanging out there. And so we ended up running across like all through these hills of Boise, chasing down our kids. I mean, it was like a cop scene where you see like a helicopter view of the guy running away who's gotten out of the car. I mean, that's kind of what it felt like. And we had our friends going to the other side of this gully, and we're on the other side, and we're like corralling this kid, all because he is so afraid and so worried about this thing that he just took to running. And we, it was, looking back on it now, it was funny, but at the time it was like one of those moments, like, what do you do? What do you do as a parent? I have no idea what to do with this kid. We finally, we had probably
the
four adults with master's degrees, teenagers and everyone else tracking down this fugitive 5-year-old running through bushes and blackberries and all kinds of things. It was crazy. Finally got him, and I just held him, and he was just fighting the whole time. And anyways, I don't have a great ending to that story other than he's like my bud right now. I mean, he's my buddy, and I think it was, but as a parent, I didn't know what to do. Like, I didn't really know what to do.
Well, I think that's the common thread with all of our worst moments is when you're when you can't control the situation.
Yeah.
Because mine is similar to Ashley's. My son got hit by a car, and it is the absolute scariest moment of my life.
Yeah.
I think of anything I've ever been scared of pales in comparison.
Yeah.
And I hope there's no scarier moment in his life that I have to live through, but that's the worst. All right, so let's go out of the shadows here. We've talked a lot about hints and tips for potential parents or people who are considering being parents. I made a list, and I asked you guys to make a list, either mentally or on paper. So let's just go through that real quick, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
I've got big 3. So these are my big 3. And I rarely, we've been saying every situation's different, every parent's different, every personality's different. But in my opinion, these 3 are for every parent. Number 1, we talked about already, is for their emotional development is I really try not to say you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to think this, you need to think that. For their emotional development and their social development, just say, I noticed you're doing such and such. When that happens, it might this and that.
More of a coach, more of a guide.
Yep. Number 2, for your emotional safety, is kind of stemming off that first one. Is just let your kid be a kid. We were talking about hierarchy of needs for a minute, right? You got food and shelter and love.
Yeah.
Before we even had our son, I kind of outlined what's my purpose with him. And my number 1 responsibility is to keep him safe. Number 2 is to keep him healthy to the degree I can. Mm-hmm. And number 3 is to teach him about the world and how things work. And that's, everything else comes after that. So that's my hierarchy. And as a result, I let him loose. Like you were talking about, it's a good thing to let your kids go ride their bikes all day. Because the more you try to micromanage them, the more you try to manipulate them, and the more you try to craft them, you're frustrated, they're frustrated, they're probably going to rebel.
Pulling away.
So I literally just from day one, I let him do his thing and I kept an eye on him. And if he needed, you said earlier, sometimes you got to jump in and just save him. But that's been rare.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are my big 3. And those have been, oh wait, I just gave you 2. See, I can't even
2.5.
The third one is for their physical development. Keep them off their cell phone as long as you can.
Yeah.
I would let my son play on my cell phone games, but very limited. And I don't think he had a cell phone till he was 13 or 14. And even now, I don't think he's on it all that much. He's probably texting his friends a lot.
Yeah.
But we've programmed the phone so he cannot get on social media. And part of the physical development is as a very, very, very last resort. And maybe I should say this is my opinion. Don't give your kid mind-altering drugs unless it's an absolute last resort. I've seen too many situations where kids are hyper or they're excitable or they're not focused and they get on medication and they're behaved, but they're losing themselves in the process.
Yeah.
So in the long run, I think, in my opinion, it's a bad choice.
Yeah.
All right. What do you got?
I wanted to say, I love that you set goals. I was reading a book by Dr. Allman. He's a brain specialist, and he paired up with a child development specialist, Dr. Allman. Anyways, he said for his parenting, he made a list of goals for his children, what he wants to do and accomplish and feels that he should do in raising his children. And then in moments when things get heated, he can return back to his goal list and say, what is my purpose here? What is my goal? And then can act or react accordingly so that his goals and his child's best interests are met. And
that's actually that was one of my things, was this whole idea of being a purposeful parent.
Yeah.
That is actually a really, I think that's what I had written down, was be purposeful in your parenting, be conscientious about it, have things that you're trying to accomplish, not to craft your kid necessarily, but that's purposeful. It's not, because like you said, there's a whole range of the type of parent you can be. It can be completely neglectful to authoritarian. And so just be purposeful about what it is. I think that's a really important principle. I
love the list idea. That's fantastic because you can always go back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you can be consistent, and then it feeds into the trust cycle, and the kids can trust. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I had empowered decision making, doing the best you can to help them learn to make decisions and to take ownership. And I also had being unified as a couple.
Yes.
Too, because I think, we don't have to get into the details or examples of that, but just being unified in your parent, and you can have different roles in that. I'm definitely more of the disciplined guy, and Ashley's more of the nurturing one, and that's just because that's kind of who we are. I'm less patient with certain things, and she's way more patient, and so we complement each other that way. But we're unified in terms of in our goal of being good parents and approach, and we don't have her rules and my rules, you know what I mean, than create confusion for our kids. So
Perfect.
being
That's
unified.
awesome. And you probably talked a lot about that before you got married. Because, how many kids do we want? How do we want to parent? What do we want to teach them? No, you're saying,
No.
I
Oh, wait,
think
I-
how the
I don't
parent came with the kids.
It just came
Okay.
with each kid. Yeah.
Okay.
We're-
Or maybe it kind of stemmed from our own parents, how we wanted to parent too a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead. What's your to-dos?
Mine was empathy, control, and anger, or managing myself, my own anger. Because I definitely noticed in myself, I'm really good at sympathizing with other people and feeling what they feel. And as a parent, when a child comes to me and says this terrible thing happened and they feel devastated, or the vice versa, because of what happened, they are so angry and enraged. I feel all those feelings right there with them. And then all of a sudden I'm angry at whoever just hurt my child, even if it's my own other child. And so being able to manage my own emotions and not get angry helps me to be a better parent, because then I am emulating exactly how they can be their best selves too. Because anger also shuts down the brain and shuts down the way we think. And so trying
you
to
get
keep my
emotional instead of
cool.
logical.
Yeah, keep my cool. Helps them keep their cool, and then emulate that later in their life and in their relationships that they get in the future. But yeah, and then making sure I give them control whenever possible so that they can feel successful, they can have a good self-esteem, and when they actually leave my house, they'll know how to manage money, how to manage their emotions, I'd much rather my child learn that spending money from their piggy bank now means, I don't get to go buy that other thing later that I was saving up for, instead of later when they're adults and have to pay for their own bills and pay for gas. They're like, dang, because I went out and splurged, I can't pay my rent now. Letting them experience consequences while they're young starts with letting them take control and make choices for themselves.
Yeah.
But then I think the biggest thing too is empathy. When they do mess up, when they didn't obey, it's like, oh, that's so sad. Making sure I'm delivering emotions for them and connection with them. I feel your pain. Oh, that's terrible. That's a bummer. But then not let myself get wrapped up, because I get angry when my kids disobey. I feel like it's disrespectful and that they don't love me because they didn't obey. And so to be able to deliver empathy instead, make that connection with them, then that doesn't make me the bad guy. Because every time I get angry, they go into that fight, flight, or whoa, I need to protect myself now. Mom's going crazy. And so now all of a sudden I'm the bad guy instead of their action. So if I want their actions and the consequence to be the bad thing, I got to make sure that I deliver empathy sincerely and not sarcastically and not anger. But yeah, so.
No, those are great. Another one of mine, we were talking about it in the beginning, is when you're ready to have a baby, have a baby. When you're not, don't. But when you're ready, because people second guess themselves, like, oh, am I really ready? And then you got the smart Alex out there. Oh, you're never ready. Yeah, you are. you don't know what to expect.
Right.
But when you're ready, you're ready. So I tell people all the time that if they're not ready, don't do it. But if you are ready, do it, because it's going to be the best experience of your life. For newborns, there is a DVD out there. Might be on streaming now. Back in my day. It's called The Happiest Baby on the Block by Dr. Harvey Karp. And it goes through 5 steps in a specific order that you do with a crying baby.
Oh.
Every time they cry, unless you know they're hungry.
Is this the 5
The 5
S's?
S's?
The 5 S's.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
I know what you're talking about.
Did you guys do those?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
We read the book.
I read the
Tried to
book.
do the 5.
I read the book too, and I love the DVD a little better because they show it.
Okay.
I don't know that we got through. We would often do steps 1 and 2, and our son would usually be quiet. Sometimes we'd have to go to 3. I don't think we ever did 4 or 5, because by the time we got to 3, he was calming down. It was a lifesaver, because new parents or potential parents are thinking, oh, I don't want to deal with all the screaming and the crying.
Yeah.
Happiest baby on the block solves it all.
yeah.
Yes.
Knowledge is
Yeah.
power.
Nighttime feedings, I just want to tell you real quick about how we dealt with that. My wife breastfed for the first 2 months, and he slept in our bedroom. We had a pack and play as his bed. So when she wasn't feeding him, we had her milk in the bottles, right? But we would decide, we would either take turns getting up in the middle of the night, or if I was off the next day or if she was off work the next day, that person would get up the whole time. So that kind of alleviates kind of the stress of who's going to get up now, we would plan ahead, like we would know who was going to get up. So that was the first 2 months. The second 2 months, we moved him in his nursery. Exact same procedure. We'd hear him on the baby monitor, go right in. We would feed him, put him back to bed. By the end of 4 months, we were getting pretty sleep deprived. And we talked to our pediatrician, and he gave us this advice, which we followed, and it worked perfectly. He said, just stop going in and feeding him. And of course, our reaction is, oh, that's inhumane. That's terrible. That's horrible. He's like, well, what would you rather do? Do you want to keep going in there until he's 3 years old? Like, yeah, no. So we did it. We got on the same page. We were united. And when we were, but I don't know if we did it immediately. I think we both had to work through our, stuff.
Yes.
But when we decided to do it, we did it. And we left the baby monitor on because we wanted to know what was going on with him.
Yes.
The first night he woke up. He woke up in the middle of the night and cried for 19 minutes. And it was hard on us. It was really hard. Yeah. And then he went back to sleep. The second night he woke up and started crying, 55 minutes.
Oh, man.
No.
And each one of us would take turns going, oh, okay, I got to go feed him. Nope. We made an agreement.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then the other one, oh, I'm going to go feed him. Nope.
Familiar.
Yes.
Right? And that was maybe the hardest thing we ever did parenting, is listening to him cry nonstop for 50, because it hurts.
Yes.
It hurts your soul.
Feels like you're being a bad parent.
Totally. And they're being neglected and they're lost and they're lonely and they're scared. Yeah, he's hungry. He finally was quiet. The third night, 10 minutes, that was it. Nights 4 and beyond, he never woke up again. Or if he did, we didn't hear him. So the 3-night rule, that's what our pediatrician said. He said in 3 nights, he'll be done. I'm like, no way, man. Yep, he was right. Ashley, you got anything else? You got a list there.
I know. If you want, we can keep going.
Give me some highlights. Give me some bullet
effort
points.
Instead of praising results.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we support our kids and we help our kids moving along. But if the child never actually achieves their dream or their vision of what they're working for, and they feel like a failure, they missed all that growth and all that becoming along the way in the journey. And a lot of people say to some kids, "You're so smart." And really what that causes in one of our kids is now that child doesn't want to try for classes they don't think they will get an A in. And I did that too, because I didn't want that label to be removed and taken away. And so I've noticed praising effort instead of giving a label, "Oh, you're dumb. Well, that was stupid. You're so smart." To just say, look how hard you work to get there.
Avoid labels.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's good for kids. That's good for adults.
Yes.
I wish our society could learn that, because we are a label-happy society lately.
I think that's a growth mindset, another growth mindset approach.
Which we kind of stumbled into when we were very beginner parents too, comparing our 2 boys that are extremely opposite. Yeah. Wow, this child does it. You don't do that.
And if you do have more than one kid, don't compare.
Yeah.
Like comparing is not, it's not good. So you don't.
Right.
Well, you're almost as good as little Johnny.
Why can't you do this like so-and-so does?
Yeah.
Yes.
Again, it's kind of it's a group effort, but an individual focus, I guess. So.
You don't see your brother doing that.
Yeah.
All right. No processed or added sugar for his first year. We also had a schedule, and I'm going to put this on the YouTube channel, on the Perfect Society channel, where we did certain things in certain order during the day. And it was so much easier for us as parents, like nap times. And right when he woke up from a nap, we did this. And then right after his feeding, we would do that. And it sounds rigid, but it was awesome. It's kind of going back to that list of things.
Yes.
Like, I don't know what to do with my kid now. Well, follow the list.
Yeah. Go through their needs, which need hasn't been met. Yeah.
Yep.
I loved having a schedule too. Made my life easier.
What else you got? Give me some bullet points.
Let actions be the bad thing. We talked about that. Managing my emotions. Oh, don't repeat myself. So sharing expectations, what I expect, but also hearing their opinion, what they expect or what they want, coming to that compromise, finding, okay, so here's the rule of the house. Here's what we're going to do. And then also laying out, well, what's the consequence if someone doesn't do that? And then, and then everyone lives their life. We're moving forward. And so if we see someone's not doing that, I don't like being the person that's constantly nagging. Oh, you need to go do that. Oh, do this. Oh, do that. Oh, do that. Don't nag. Don't constantly repeat myself. Just say, oh, sorry. Looks like you missed out on your phone because you didn't get off when your 15-minute timer pinged at you or whatever.
Beautiful.
Or, oh, I guess you can't go play with friends right now because you didn't do the chore, your dishes or whatever. And so, and then again, I'm not the bad guy, which I feel like was a lot through as our kids grew and there's just more kids than there is me. It's kind of hard to keep up. So making sure I'm not the nagging person or the bad guy was simply by just not repeating myself and just delivering a little empathy and the consequences. Oh, darn.
And they learn faster.
Yeah.
Like if you let them slide a time or two, they'll just keep pushing it.
Yes.
Well, they didn't,
That too.
I was still able to stay on the phone. I was still able to go.
Yes.
But if you got to nip it in the bud.
Yeah.
Early on, I think, what is it, the 2 months when they're newborn to 2 months, you keep them at home because of all the germs out there? I think it's 2 months.
Yeah, something.
As soon as 2 months hit, I took my boy everywhere. Running errands, going to the grocery store, and of course taking him places, the parks or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and it's not that hard. You just make sure your diaper bag's filled with everything you need. And they're light enough that you can carry them around everywhere.
Yeah.
Now with, multiple kids, I'm sure it's different. But
For us, having that first kid, I felt like we were 30 minutes late to everything for like a whole month. Why is it so hard
blowout
to
in
get
a
out the door
diaper.
in terms of like
Totally.
managing expectations on yourself? If you do have
Yeah.
a kid and you're late to things, it gets better.
yeah. And my last two is read to them early and often. And the second one you already mentioned is teach them about money. I started teaching my son investing at 4. He had a brokerage account at 10.
It's awesome.
The kid's going to retire before he's 30. And I couldn't be happier, right? Because then he could do the things he wants to do and not the things that he has to do.
Yeah.
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 All right, let's do the speed round. We're going to wrap up.
Okay.
All right, now the speed round, I'm going to ask you questions and you answer them as succinctly and as quickly as possible. And this is the first time. What?
So this is scary.
No, you'll do great. This is the first time I've done it with 2 people, so let you both answer, okay?
Okay.
And who wants to go? You want to just alternate who goes first? Well, let's do that so you don't
Okay,
influence.
so take turns.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll go
I'll go and then
you and you and then you and you and then you and you.
Okay,
All right.
cool.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. What is the meaning of life?
to find joy and happiness.
To grow and progress and become more than what you are.
Beach or mountains?
Wow, that's hard.
I go first this time.
Yeah.
Mountains.
Beach.
All right. Movies at home or at the theater?
Home.
Home.
Is the earth flat or round?
Round.
Round.
Are ghosts real?
No.
The way media portrays them, no.
How do we end war?
Peace. Love.
Music.
Compromise. Compromise.
Compromise? All right. Did OJ do it?
Probably.
I don't know who OJ is.
O.J.
Oh.
Simpson.
Okay. OJ in my house is orange juice.
Yeah.
Which is more effective, discipline or willpower?
Discipline.
It's not your turn, Jared.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know. That's a toughie. I mean, I'm thinking about both of my kids, and I don't know. I think in the beginning,
What about for you? When you want to get something done, is it better to have discipline?
Willpower.
Okay, willpower and discipline?
No, I'd say willpower.
Okay. If it ain't broke, don't.
Fix it.
it,
Curiosity killed the.
cat,
That.
A penny saved is.
a penny.
Penny earned.
All right. Who is better at running things, free people or politicians?
Free people.
That's an interesting. Yeah, I guess free people.
Someone who feels in control of themselves, I feel like would be better at managing and making choices.
All right. Star Wars or Star Trek?
I grew up watching Star Trek with my dad. If you wanted dad time, like we watched Star Trek.
Star Trek?
My boys-
Jared?
I'll give it now the Star Wars
There
then.
you go.
Star Wars? All right.
We quote Star Wars a
It's
lot.
only the originals though. Anyways,
Yeah.
They're the only ones that count. Which is worse, fear or regret?
regret.
Regret.
2112 or Xanadu?
I don't know what
I don't know what that's referring
Yeah.
to.
Sorry.
Jeans or shorts?
Shorts.
Jeans, because then they become shorts once they're no longer jeans.
True or false? We went to the moon.
True.
True.
Why did the chicken cross the road?
To get to the other side.
To get to the other side, I guess he was curious.
Do you have a hankering for a hunk of cheese?
I do not. Jared usually does. He's the cheese man.
Did you have fun?
Yes.
All right. It was great having you guys here.
Yes,
Thank you.
fantastic.
Jared had to think about that one. It was fun until that goofy speed round.
No, I loved it.
Thanks for coming in. It was great having you guys. Anything you want to promote? Any social media you want people to visit? Anything at all?
Oh, Love and Logic by Dr. Faye.
Is that the book Parenting with Love and Logic?
Yeah, that is amazing.
That's a great book.
It's so helpful for little kids and teenagers.
Good plug.
Yeah.
I guess Growth Mindset's a great book. I don't remember who wrote it, or just it would benefit adults and youth, having a growth mindset.
If anyone wanted to get in touch with you guys, do you want to put anything out there, or are we good?
No, we're
Like,
good.
do you have any websites you need to promote? Or I always ask everybody. Okay, no, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jared and Ashley, thank you so much for sharing your joys of parenting. Really appreciate it. And thank you for being with us. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and share all of our videos so the algorithms can start getting the perfect society out to as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. Take care. Sayonara. Adios. Goodbye. Thank you very much. To those of you considering having children, please heed my advice. When you are ready, have them as soon as you can. Parenting will take you on so many journeys. Some stressful, most good, all worthwhile. Your kids will provide you a range of emotions you never knew you had. And when you're a parent, the adventure is unlike anything else you will ever encounter. Here's one that happened to me. I had a profound experience during the last 2 weeks of 2022. My 14-year-old son and I took a 2-week vacation to Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. He stayed with me for 10 days and then had to get back to school after Christmas break. So I spent the remaining 4 days by myself. Now, this was our second trip to Hilton Head. During the previous trip, we did all the touristy things. We were out and about every day, seeing the sights and having fun. So this time, I didn't plan much. Plus, 2022 was a busy year for both of us, so we didn't need a vacation with an overly structured schedule. We were just going to wing it. And if we spent some or even most of our time in the condo, well, that was just fine with us. Besides, the weather in Hilton Head was 40 degrees warmer than it was at home, so that alone was a nice change of pace. The layout of the condo is germane to this story, so here it is. Upon entering the unit, you walk into an open floor plan with the living room directly in front of you and the kitchen and the dining are behind you. Down a short hall is the bathroom, and then at the end, the bedroom. I slept in the bedroom while my son slept in the hide-a-bed in the living room sofa. During our 10 days, we had a great time. We ended up doing most of our activities during his final days there when we visited a few of the Civil War memorials, hiked the wetlands, and hit a couple beaches along the Atlantic. Since the rest of the time was unstructured, I let my son have his own space. He was already at the age of wanting his own space. Being 14, he had already begun transitioning from boy to man. He spent more and more time away from me, opting for the company of his peers and enjoying his own interests. So during our vacation, he spent most of his time sitting on the hide-a-bed with his laptop in his lap and wearing his headphones, either listening to music or talking or gaming with friends. I would see him there all the time. When I came out of the bedroom in the mornings, I would see him sleeping there, still wearing his headphones. In the afternoons when I returned from the gym and the beach, I would see him sitting there, either playing games alone or with friends. In the evenings when I would make us dinner, I would see him sitting there, busy on the laptop but also watching forensic files on the TV. And late in the evening when I went to bed, I would see him sitting there. Again, either playing games alone or talking and laughing with friends. Since he was now a teenager, I knew this change in our relationship was going to happen. Still, I was a little sad that he wanted to spend so much time with his friends instead of me. But I knew he still loved me, and I knew he still enjoyed spending some time with me. But it was obvious that he didn't need Dad much anymore. It certainly was different from when he was 12 years old and 8 years old, and especially 4 years old and 2 years old. During his last day in the condo, I was already feeling a sense of loss. Even though he spent most of the vacation on his own playing on his laptop, it felt good seeing him all the time on the hide-a-bed. And I wasn't looking forward to him going home. Later that afternoon, when I dropped him off at the airport, I felt pretty normal. When I came home, the first thing I saw was that empty hide-a-bed. And I didn't think too much about it. I closed it into the sofa, put the cushions back on, and replaced the coffee table. Then I went about my day. I drove to Savannah for an afternoon walking on the beach, got some sun, collected seashells, and had dinner. After I got home that evening, I did what I often do, spent it reading in my bedroom. Around 10:30 that night, I got thirsty. I put my book down and headed for the kitchen. Now remember, I had to cross through the living room to get there. And this is when the profound experience happened. I was so used to seeing my son sitting there for 10 days straight. And then I saw the empty space where he and the hide-a-bed used to be. And I broke down. Hard. I totally lost it. I'm not ashamed to admit that I had a really ugly cry. The kind where your breathing is hitched, your mouth is twisted into crazy shapes, and your eyes are straining against your face so hard you think they're going to pop out. I missed him so much. It felt like all my insides had hollowed out. I'm not sure why I had such a spontaneous and intense reaction to him being gone. We'd been separated many times in the past. During the summers, he would be away for week-long summer camps, and he would also take 1 or even 2-week holiday trips out of town with my ex-wife and her family. So it's not like we'd never been apart before. But this time felt very different. I had an instant feeling of loss, a hole so big it seemed like it could never be filled. But after a few minutes of the most intense loneliness, I had a new feeling. It was very strange. I felt invigorated. I still hurt, but I also felt very alive, like I was feeling superhuman emotions. Later that evening, my emotions ran bittersweet. I was still lonely, and at the same time, I had an overwhelming sense of completeness, of closure. I knew that this is how it's supposed to be. My son moving forward in life, and me, lucky to be a part of it all these years. And this is the deep range of emotions that I spoke of earlier. Despite a terrible loneliness, I also felt happy that he was on his way back to school, back to his own life, back to his own friends, knowing that this is the cycle of life, that you must let the baby bird fly out of the nest and live his own life. So even though I missed him, the feeling of happiness and closure was much stronger. And that, my friends, is the thrill of parenthood. These deep emotions that you will never experience with anybody else. The relationship with a spouse is special and powerful. Your relationships with your parents, your siblings, your best friends, your favorite coworkers, all fantastic. But none of these are quite the same as the unique bond between you and your child. And within this deep bond, this deep range of emotions, you will know that the time with your children is so worth the journey. And when it's all said and done, there is no sadness. There's a little bit of longing for that little baby boy that you watched grow up. But when he's older, you're going to be so proud of him. You know that you've been a good parent, you've loved him, supported him, and kept him safe. But now he's on his way, flying away from the nest. Until next time, take care of yourself, your children, and each other.